On the long and lonesome journey to the great awakening, we thought we were going to be free. Now we realized the ones we're waiting for is you and me. People say we're crazy, but they're just fast asleep. Each one that awakens is now waiting on the leap into the unknown, but I know it gets much better than right here. Here I am, standing in my power again. Here I stand, uncovering the truth again. Turn the page, it's a new chapter, and it says where we go on, we go on. And it says where we go on, we go on.
Hello, everyone, the TTP family that's out there. We're going to have a great show today. I have got Marcia is back with me, and we got a few things that we're going to discuss with you. But before we kick that off, she is in the green room right now waiting to come in. And I'm going to do my prayer. And if she wants to share a prayer later on, she could do that also. But I always share this with you guys before we start the show. And this particular prayer happens to be for a prayer for peace in daily life. And I've got about 15 prayers. I'm going to be needing more in the near future because I'm starting to repeat them, but they're all need to be repeated. So here we go. So in the hustle of everyday existence, may we cultivate moments of stillness and presence. Let us recognize the opportunities to spread kindness and cultivate understanding in our interactions. May the simple task of compassion we share create ripples of peace that extend far beyond our immediate circle. In the mundane routine of life, may we find opportunity to infuse the world with positivity and goodwill. And there you guys go. I have my candle lit for the prayer each and every show. And I just want to give a shout out to the ones out there. Buck, we know that you are fake working, and thank you for being here. And also to Mayday, who is Sunfire May out on Rumble. And let's see who else we have. Mari Homestead is out there saying, let's get this party started. You better believe it. Free Spirit, how are you? And Lori is saying hello to everybody in the chat, and also Q Crew out there. I see the Hula Hoop is out there too. So one other announcement I want to make before I bring her in is tomorrow night, I think it's at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Central time. We're going to have Allison back with us, a.k.a. Alley Cat, and we're going to be talking about, let's see here, what are we going to be talking a little bit about? Oh, the moon moment in the sun. So that should be a really good show, the moon moment in the sun. So stay tuned for that one. As soon as I'm done with this show, I'll put that out there so that you guys can get notified. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe, and so that you can get notified if they're notifying you. So I'm not sure what's going on with Rumble. It was purchased by a particular company that owns everything. I'm not even going to say its name because I want to stay on Rumble. But in any case, there's some things that are happening. I want to say hello to two of my channels, TTP Coast to Coastal out on YouTube and Turn the Page 2.0. And so let's get started here a little bit. And let me just bring in Marcia. How are you?
Fine. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing really well. If I can get a 5-5, if everybody can hear her out there once she starts speaking, let me know. But I think we're doing really good. Hello, Mary Jean G. I want to say hi to you. She just popped in here. Thank you for all you guys that are popping in and saying hello. And I do appreciate you guys being here. We're going to be bringing you a lot of really cool stuff for 2024 as we open our door to spirituality. And the first one that we're Healing Breeze of Summer Woman is her name there. I think it's beautiful that she has that up there. And I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but we don't plan anything. We take wherever spirit guides us and we go with it. We're so intuitive. Each and every one of you are so intuitive. And I think more and more of you guys are following that. So without any further delay, Marcia, what's going on?
Well, there's a lot today. I think there's a lot of good news. Healing Breeze of Summer Woman is my Indian name. And in my Chippewa language, that would be Niban Nodenkwe. And I went through a naming process and ceremony when I was an adult. And so it's very special to me. It was given to me by one of our tribal spiritual leaders. And I had no idea what it was going to be. In the naming ceremony, you really don't know your name until you're in the ceremony. In a certain part, they reveal your name to you. So it actually brought tears to my eyes. Because in the Indian community, it was going through a lot of struggles when I was there. And I was shocked that spiritual leader picked that name for me, because at that point in time, I had to be more of a warrior for our people. So, I think that does fit who I am pretty well, but it was very affirming and it meant a great deal to me. So, as I've said before, I am a quantum shaman, which simply means that we're in a quantum age. Shamans have been around forever. I was born a shaman. And it's just who I was born. And my father's family is Chippewa, and I come by that from a long line of shamans. And so early on in my life, I would have meetings with a group of elders, and these were spiritual elders. And I didn't think there was anything abnormal about that at all. And it would take me a while to realize that not everybody was aware that you had guides and or perhaps angels around. Some people have that they can communicate with. I'm not a medium, although I have met with lots and lots of people on the other side. I don't do that as a regular practice. We can start with what we kind of talked about. Janine, that poem that I sent you by Rudyard Kipling, that kind of outlines, I think, when I was in high school and for many years afterwards, this was a poem by Rudyard Kipling that was on a lot of graduation cards. And I always was very attracted to it, but I think it really fits where we are now. I didn't have, I don't know, I guess it didn't have the meaning that I think it does now. Shall we start and read a few lines of it? And I think people will get how it's kind of for today. I don't know. What do you think, Janine?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Always.
Okay. And this will probably be familiar to many. And so we'll start with a few lines and then we'll kind of discuss it, I hope. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Now, I would say that describes MAGA pretty well, don't you think? I had to laugh because I was trying to find this. And when I read the first line, I went, oh my gosh, spot on. And in fact, I think that the fact that so many MAGA people have found their heart spirit and they bring that to rallies. And I think that's one reason why Trump rallies are so popular and so many people flock to them, because it is truly a special feeling when you go to a Trump rally and people there seem to get into that heart spirit. And I think it's very appealing and it attracts a lot of people. And when you go to a Trump rally, there's not negativity. There's not people moaning and complaining and stuff. They may talk about a few things, but mostly they're greeting one another and being friendly with one another. It's quite appealing. And I guess we're used to being blamed, right? Called names. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. I think that's an important thought. Learning to trust ourselves is one of the hardest things we have to do in this walk at this time. And we have to refrain from getting too upset or irritated with those who are casting doubt on us, because they're kind of lost and wandering around in the dark, and we kind of have to we don't have to bow down to them or anything, but I think it's not good to throw negative energy at them. It doesn't help them or us, either one. If you can wait, now here's a good one. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting. I love that line. That's a challenge. Or being lied about. Don't deal in lies. And I think that's another thing that's very important, is these are things that we can all do, and we can bring them down to a personal level. And there are things that we can work on a daily basis. And well, I think most of us do a pretty good job at telling the truth. When we really start focusing on doing it, I think I've been surprised by how many lies of convenience I fall into, where I am aware that I don't want to upset somebody, or I am concerned that if somebody says, well, how do you like my new hair? And I may not. When I've challenged myself to tell the truth, there are certainly ways to say the truth without being ugly or hurtful. But it is important. Truth is a very powerful energy, and it sends out very powerful and strong energies of protection for us and our families. That is just an old, it's a very old piece of wisdom that seems to, I think it's very sage advice. Don't deal in lies. I love that. And when I started making this a part of my practice, what I had to laugh at myself a lot about is how frequently I would be fooled by fake news. I don't know if you've had that experience, Janine, but even if you're just listening to something casually, people will say things that are just simply not true on the news. And I would find myself repeating what I thought was something that I heard on the news. Why? Because I heard it on the news. So, and I think you mentioned, Janine, that you quit watching mainstream media because of that. And it's easy to pick up. It's kind of worse than fake news. I think there are intentional, misleading, disinformation and lies that are being said, and more so, as a matter of fact.
Well, I think that's been proven for the last 5 years or so, and they're showing it now. It's just comical. Now there's just a bunch of clowns out there. Yeah. We begin to read between the lines, if you will. And what is the true story? Always goes to follow the money, right? That's where you always will find the truth. If they're telling you a lie, there's something else out there that they don't want you to know about. And so that's our level of consciousness today, is not look over here, but look over here, right? And we are, I think, even though it may sound confusing and unbelievable, I think we're opening our brains even more so, yes. Where we're questioning everything. So if I could just throw in an example there, and I'll let you get back to your rest of your.
Oh, absolutely. This is a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what happened to me. A lot of people who've been following me for a long time know that I had to say goodbye to 2 of my dogs within 2 months. And it was heartbreaking. So that was at the end of December. So here we are, mid-March, and I decided to get a puppy for my little guy, Rizzo. Same breed, pure. I went back to the breeder, and she said these puppies were born January 12th. I said, okay. And she said right around mid-March you should get them. I had two options to pick them up. I had to go back, and it's out of state. And I trust this breeder. And so what had come of that was, now this is mid-March, and I had said to her, I'll give you a deposit. I said, what's required? She said, a deposit. And then if you want, we could fly the dog out to you. They use these services to ship the puppies, but we got to make sure all the shots, everything is done. The puppy is good, gone to the vet, yada, yada. I said, okay, all right. And I kept asking her, here's my deposit. Here's my deposit. She didn't want to take it. My antennas went up, if you will, and I knew that there wasn't something right. And I had talked to Sweet Mayday about this, and she said, well, maybe she just needs to get her checked out. You know, when you're talking to someone, they're always going to give you the positive side, the hope, the balance to things, so that you don't go to the other. And I know my intuition so well. Yeah. That when I know this, I have to wait for the incident to happen after the fact so that people could see where I've always come from. That's the most frustrating thing to ever have to go through life doing, but I know it. So today comes along and she says, well, we took the puppy to the vet, and this is a West Highland, is a purebred, and they also tend to know to have what they call like a lion's jaw, which just basically means that sometimes some of the West Highland can have their jaw misaligned when they are born, which I knew was a lie. Straight lie. Goes back to your story about lying. So I always like to get a little bit more information about the lie, and she's not going to admit anything to me. She wouldn't take my deposits after 3 times of me asking for it. And then all of a sudden she says, she said to me, well, there's another puppy that is available, because she showed me 4 of them. And she says, do you want the one in the pink collar instead of the original one? Because that one has and I didn't get to the text in time. And then I wrote back and I said, can you send me a picture? Well, she says, sorry, that puppy was just adopted 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, what is going on here? So the next thing is I let it go. I was really upset because I named the puppy. The puppy's energy was already coming to me, whether she knows it or not. And I even gave the puppy a name, and I even told Rizzo, you're going to get a little sister, so on and so forth. So then me and my husband decided we'll just go and adopt a dog. That's the best thing to do. We went out, we looked, and I came back and I said, I'm not done with this energy with this particular person yet. In my mind, I wasn't done with it. So then I wrote to her and I said, are you going to have any more litters? And then finally she said to me, we're selling the business for personal reasons. So that was the answer to me, is that she got rid of the dog either at a much higher price, or she just decided to sell it right then and there to somebody that happened to walk up because I'm out of state, right? So I got the full picture. I was not going to get the full picture if I just let it go and just say, okay, like, you know, we have always been trained to do, okay, thank you very much. Yes, I am sad. No, I've never been that way. I want to know the truth behind these lies and why she's presenting them to me. Then I actually picked up on her energy, and it is a personal issue. She's going through a divorce. I got that from her energy. And I got that her business wasn't doing so good and so on. But that doesn't mean that she was going to admit to it. You know, what I was sensing is that puppy was never meant to be mine. And I said this to Mayday a few times, and Mayday would always say, just hang in there. She you know, she's got to do what she's got to do. She'll get back to you. Well, she dragged her feet for so long that we have to pay attention to our intuition when lies are coming to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I didn't take it very well. I did cry. I did mourn for the puppy that wasn't going to be with me. But then I went back and I just said, the universe will send me a puppy when the time is right. That's perfect for myself, my family, you know, and my husband, right, as part of the family. And it will happen. But my heart broke for that little puppy, because me and this little puppy were exchanging energies. And so at some point I will say goodbye to the puppy, because the puppy has now moved on to hopefully another really good family. Or actually what I sensed is that they're going to use this little girl she did sell the business. She did tell me she sold the business. The little puppy that I got was the best out of that breed, that litter, is probably going to start having other puppies for them to continue their business. That's what I got. And so whether or not that's the truth, it doesn't matter, but she's got her job in life, and it doesn't include me. But the way that the people go about making up the lies, we all know on some level, we know when someone's lying to us.
And the truth is so much more powerful and good. we may not want to hear it in the moment. It might have been a disappointment to you to hear it, obviously, but the truth is so much better. It's healthier, it's kinder, it's more loving. And I think that the truth will lead us to that higher place of love. And when we really start making it a point to tell the truth in big things and small, and sometimes we're going to be awkward in that telling of the truth, but it's better to be a little awkward and follow that commitment, because good energy will come from it and good things will come from it. I'm sorry that she um, couldn't have been truthful with you, but you also needed to pick up on the fact that you knew the truth.
I did.
And yeah,
I knew the truth from the minute that she delayed, when there was a delay in the energy, when there was a break in the energy, that's when I knew the truth. But I still held out. I like everybody else, you hope for the best, right? And
absolutely.
but when things don't go your way, I just kind of figured, well, I should have named a dog, but I did, in exchange of energies. But there's always a reason. And what do I always say is that we have to be grateful for God's unanswered prayers.
Yeah. And the fact that you can trust the outcome. If it happens, I believe it's meant to be. We may not know the reason why, or understand the reason, or understand the gift or the treasures and what happened, but they're always there. Eventually you'll find them. And it's a good, and telling the truth is a good way to get there. I think I'd like to switch a little bit. I know last show I said that I would share a little bit more about myself, and I think that I'd like to go there now, speaking of the truth, because when I can't remember if it was our first show or if I shared this at all, but in our history, Native peoples knew for a long time that people would be coming across the oceans and coming up from the south, like Mexico and so on, and that the lands would be changing hands and so on. That was in many of our prophecies for a long time. It wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't something that was welcomed, because we did live in harmony with ourselves for the most part. We fought too. There were fights among peoples, of course, but we weren't surprised when other peoples came. And one of the things that came from that, many people coming from Europe and other continents to this country, was that eventually Indians were removed. And they were removed from the land that they were on and put into or onto reservations. And then in the late 1890s, or in the early 1890s, actually, the reservations were never large enough to support the people. So Congress had to supplement the reservations with what was called annuities. And that meant yearly payments. And there were Indian agents that passed out the annuities, including a little bit of cash, but mostly blankets and food. And then in about 1890 or 1892, the Senate looked at the expense for the reservations, which was about $2 million at that point, and decided that there had to be another way. And what they decided was, I think the speech in Congress in the Senate went something like, if you put a Bible in one hand and a plow in the other, Indians will forget who they're Indian and become white. Now we know, listening to that today, that that's ridiculous, but that's what the thought was back in 1890. And so the boarding schools were started. First, there were day schools started. And when, like any parent, Indian parents sent their children to the schools and discovered that they couldn't speak their language, these were the day schools, they wanted to cut their hair and change their names, they wouldn't send their children there. Right. And who among us could blame them, right? Well, that didn't satisfy Congress, so they decided, some senators had the idea, well, let's make it a all year long boarding school. So the children will go to the school, and they'll be there all year and stay. Well, Indian parents resisted that too. However, what the Senate and Congress did then was make the payment of annuities dependent on your children going to the boarding school. So if you didn't send your children, you would starve. You wouldn't get what was necessary to survive on the reservation. These schools were run by the Catholic Church, Presbyterian Church, Methodist, and they were the Holocaust for our people. They were, the children would go there, they were treated horrifically. Children would go there, and because the food was very different, oftentimes they would be sick when they first arrived trying to eat the food. And one common practice was to make the children eat their own vomit.
Oh,
Another,
Jesus.
yeah. And they had, it was days of strict punishment, and they beat the children regularly. And they had used to have dried beans or peas in the basement of many of these schools, and they would make children kneel for hours on these things for the smallest of infractions, what they considered to be infractions of rules.
They were trying to break their soul to make them as white
Become white.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it was a Holocaust to our people. And my father was born into a family. His father and mother he was the youngest of 10 children. Now, they weren't put into the boarding school system at first because my great-grandfather, my father's grandfather, was a lighthouse keeper, and he was really good at it. So the family moved with him around to the different lighthouses. But in about 1919, my great-grandfather passed away suddenly. And so the family had to move out of the lighthouse, and they had no means of support. Now, the salary for a lighthouse keeper was about $400 a year. But it was enough to keep the family going. And my grandfather did some logging and some hunting, and also worked on some of the fishing boats in the straits and so on. But about the time that my great-grandfather died, there was a depression. And so that meant that my grandfather was out of work, and he left the family to go to Muskegon to try to get work as a fireman. But this left these kids and my grandmother and his mother and his sister. They had no visible means of support. So this is how my father and his the siblings closest to him in age were put into the boarding school. Now, my father was close to his siblings. He loved them dearly. And he never knew the cultural meaning of those schools. He never knew why he had to go there. He was 4 when he was put into those schools. And he was beaten for trying to relate to his sisters. If they were lined up and standing in line, a 4-year-old doesn't know you can't say hello to your sister. He would run to them. And my aunts told me they used to cry because they would try to signal to him, don't come, don't come, don't come. But he wanted to hug. He wanted to be with the people he knew and loved. So he was beaten daily for those kinds of things. He was also an extraordinary, probably 1 in a million athlete. And there was never enough food at the schools. And when I went to work in the Indian community in the early 90s, I met the man who had been his best friend at the school. And he told me really the story of what my father went through. My father never talked about it at all. He called it the orphanage, but he didn't know why he had been put there. He didn't know that if there was an attorney in the town where they lived in Michigan that had them committed to that school. He didn't know that. And his mother had to take him to that school and leave him there. And all that he could remember of her for many, many years was as a small child of age 4 being put in the arms of this strange woman in black, a nun, and his mother turning and walking away and leaving him. And he held that against her most of his adult life. He didn't know that it was a cultural thing. He didn't know that they'd been starving and that she didn't have a choice. But when he was, there were a lot of priests there, and they impregnated lots of the young girls, and they also sodomized the young boys. So that was the early life that my father had. But he was very early identified as a very unusual and great athlete. And so his friend told me that they would have to go and steal apples from the nearby orchards so that everybody could have enough to eat. The kids could have enough to eat at the school. And he and my father were chosen because they could run fast. And they would go and steal apples and then run, and they'd bury them in the ground in maple leaves, and they would last through the winter. One year, my father was beaten so badly that they broke his leg. Now, in the Indian records of the school, there is a letter from the superintendent who said that my father's leg was broken and he had to have surgery. But the letter blames my father for being around horses, and he was supposedly wanting to be around one of his older brothers, and a wagon ran over his leg. That wasn't the truth. His leg was broken by someone beating him. And eventually, because my father was the youngest, when kids turned 16, they were thrown out of the school. They had to leave. And when his sister closest to him left, he was 10. He ran away from that school at age 10, which was in the middle of Michigan. And his family, he'd been born on Mackinac Island, and the family had been living on St. Helena Island and then in St. Ignace. So he hitched on a train from the middle of Michigan all the way up to the UP, which meant that he had to steal aboard a ferry boat, because at that point there was no bridge across the straits, and got to his home only to find everyone gone. No one was there, no family. Fortunately, there were 3 families that took him in, and essentially they raised him. And his athletic prowess saved him. He became like the hero of the community. He could run the fastest. He was good at football. His nickname was Smokey. He could run so fast, and he played basketball, and he was a great skier. He loved to play ice hockey. And that got him far in life. But you don't just walk away from those wounds. Now, I think my father was also a shaman. He never knew it, really, but he taught me a lot of things that had been taught to him. Never called himself a shaman, but in meetings that I've had with him and my other shaman relatives since, he said to me, "Marsh, I didn't even know. I said, "Okay." And he said, but he did many things that were miraculous for those times and those his age. To run away at age 10, pretty miraculous, about 400 miles. To survive in the UP, I think, is miraculous in the first place. And he loved playing baseball, and he was a pitcher, and he was a first baseman. And he'd been tapped by the Cincinnati Red baseball team to play pro ball for them. But the war took him out of that, and he had to go to war. And he and my mother met up in St. Ignace, and she'd come up for the summer with her friends, and he fell head over heels in love with her. And she was flattered by his love, but she had another boyfriend. And so he asked her to marry him. And she said, sure. Now, I would ask her later, why did you do that? And she said, oh, I didn't think he was serious. Until at the end of that summer, he scraped together all the money he could, and he got her this ring. And she said to him, I can't marry you. I didn't think you were serious. So they broke up. She went back to Bay City, Michigan, which is where she was from. He went to war. And it was his dream to be a pilot, which he achieved. And her fiance got another woman pregnant. And so on the day that she found out that he was married to somebody else, she got a letter from my father saying, gee, if you're, not engaged or married, and would you mind being my pen pal? And so she said, yes. They corresponded through the war, and that's how and then they got married after the war. And my father went to Michigan State University. As far as I can tell, he was the first Native American to go there. He majored in engineering, which is a miracle in itself, given his education, and struggled through school. And then they moved down to Indiana. And the funny thing is, they moved down to be with family, which were his sisters and his brothers and his mother. Now,
so let me ask you a question. Which war was he in? Because there are
two.
Okay, because there are the stories out there where the Native American Indians were helping with the coding, and I'm not sure which war it was, to be honest with you. I can't recall.
That was Navajos.
The Navajos.
The Navajo language. They were the coders. Yeah.
Okay.
My dad was always, he probably had a bit of a rebel gene in him, as Carrie Cassidy would say, because here it was his dream. He played on the Army football team to get to go to to become an Army pilot, which he passed, and he got the jacket and the scarf and all that stuff. And after he graduated from that school, while I was waiting to ship out, he and a buddy snuck onto the air base. They were drinking, got into a plane. They started buzzing the town. So that knocked him out of the Army Air Corps, and he was into just the Army Corps of Engineers. And so, but he served in both the European and the what was the other front that we had? The Japanese front. Served on both fronts. And when he came back, and we were living in northern Indiana, he had an extreme case of PTSD, as one might expect, both from the experiences he'd had at the boarding school and also from the experiences that he'd had in the war. Part of the job of the Corps that he'd had to do was he had to dig graves, mass graves for soldiers, because they had to bury bodies. They couldn't leave them rotting around on the ground. And that really haunted him. So from the earliest time that I can remember in northern Indiana, my father would have terrible, horrible nightmares from time to time. Rather frequently, as I look back on it, I think, but I couldn't tell you how frequently. He would cry, scream out things, have night sweats. But in those days, they warned everybody severely, never touch a veteran having a dream, never wake them up or they might kill you. So the advice was just let them have the dream. Now, my parents had built a small house in Griffith. It was 980 square feet. It was my father's castle. He loved it. And our whole family, all 6 of us, lived there. But at the time that he was having the nightmares, my younger sister and brother hadn't yet come along. And I could not sleep when he would have one of these. Now, my mother and my older sister grew to where they could sleep through them. I could never do it. I always felt a strong connection to my dad and a heart connection. And as these nightmares continued, I would get up and I would pace the floors until the nightmare would pass. And then when the nightmare would finally pass, wherever I was, I'd just lay down on the floor and go to sleep. I was exhausted. But eventually it began to take a toll on me, and I could feel this dark heaviness around my heart, a darkness. And I started to have leg aches that were terrible. And my parents took me to the doctor, but they could not find the reason for them. They didn't know what was causing them. And they were so bad that nothing would stop it. It was excruciatingly painful. I took cold baths, hot baths. I'd take an aspirin. Nothing would stop the pain. I rubbed my legs. The only thing that I could do when they would come on would be to walk. And I would find myself just pacing again, up and down the hall, around the living room, up and down and around, until I was so exhausted that I would just fall asleep. Now, I really wanted to learn to read, and I taught myself to read. And after I got out of first grade, I felt pretty skillful in my ability to read. And so I would make weekly trips to the library. And the librarian would only let me get enough books that would go from my wrist to my elbow. Because the library was about a mile from our house. And of course, this was early summer, and she was afraid I wouldn't make it back home, I think. So that was frustrating to me because my mom didn't want me going to the library more than once a week. And I would often finish the books about midweek. Now, we had a small house, but at the end of the one hallway in our house, we had a walk-in closet, and it was filled with boxes and out of season coats and things. And I wasn't very big. I'm only 5'1" now. So I was kind of a small kid. And I made a little nest for myself in the back of this closet where I could take a flashlight and read. Now, that was great, except for one thing, is it was so hot in there, I would sweat like a pig, really. I mean, just sweat dripping down my face. It worried my mother greatly. She would bring me pitchers of water, and she'd say, "Marcia, are you sure you want to stay in here? I don't think it's a good idea." But it was private, and I wanted privacy. So she'd bring me the water, and I loved reading in that in that closet. And one week, I found this little thin book, and I put it on top. It kind of went above my elbow, but the librarian let me keep it. Took it home, and I started reading it. And in that book was the story of this kid about 14. His name was Lev. Now, I knew that he was Jewish, but I fell in love with his family. He was from Poland, and his family owned a manufacturing business, and they had a large family, and they owned a big apartment building, and they all lived in the same apartment building. And they would have Sunday dinners together, and they would have, and not that that was a part of their religion, but it was a time that they gathered for parties and things like that. And they were very family oriented, and they did a lot of things as a family. I fell in love with his family. I felt like they were my family. I felt like I knew everybody in the family. I could picture them. And I just loved hearing and reading about all. In my mind, I was hearing them, but I was reading the book, of course. And then one day, the Nazis came.
This is in the book.
Yeah. It was the story of a man who had survived Auschwitz. And so he wrote the story after World War II, long after World War II, and I had never heard of the Holocaust. But when they came and took he and his family, it was like I was experiencing it with him because he was confused about what was going on. He was a very good writer and a very good storyteller. And I started crying. I was upset. I was frightened. I didn't know what was happening. And I couldn't put the book down. Of course, I hear this little knock on the door. My mom comes, Marcia, are you okay? Yeah. And she said, are you okay? What are you reading? I said, well, it's a sad story. It's a sad story, Mom, but don't worry, it has a happy ending. Now, what I meant by that was he was writing the book as an adult, so I knew he had to survive whatever it was that was going to happen. So that's what I meant by happy ending. So I went through his journey through Auschwitz with him, his sisters and mother and aunties being selected and sent to the gas chambers, and his older brothers and his uncles dying in Auschwitz, and his father dying. And he was the lone survivor from that entire family group. And I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed through that.
So, Marcia, I want to kind of get your perspective on this. You know the history of your ancestors and how they've been lied to about the reservations, how well the reservations were going to be for them. And we all know that the reservations were only for the white men to prosper off of the Indians. And there's been so many movies and so many books written about that the no matter what Indian type it is, they were all still victims of the white men. Now, you're telling a story about Auschwitz, and a lot of people are now thinking that is not as bad as what they're saying. So,
if you read the first person accounts of it, you absolutely will know it is as bad as they were saying. And this is the point of what happened, though. In that closet, at the end of that first book, after I had sobbed my heart out for what happened to Lev's family, who I had felt were my family, they came into my life as strangers, and I felt like I'd been through the death of my own family. That's how close I felt to them from the skills of this storyteller who had been in Auschwitz and survived it. But at the end of that, I noticed that this heaviness around my heart, this blackness, had lightened just a bit. It was lighter. And I knew that was a good thing. I knew that my sharing that suffering with him had lightened my burden. It had helped save me a little bit. So I convinced the librarian to get me lots more of those. And she had to go to interlibrary loan. And I spent that summer reading Holocaust survivor stories, accounts of their trips through Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and so on. But each time that I finished one, my heart would be a little lighter. And by the end of that summer, when I was ready to go into second grade, my leg aches were gone, and so were my father's nightmares.
Is it because you felt you connected to another tragedy in life? There's been so many tragedies.
We're all connected.
Right.
And when we share the suffering with someone else, our suffering is halved. And when we share joy with someone else, our joy is doubled.
Right.
So that was the first time I realized, hey, wait a minute, we're all connected by something. And now I know, as we all do, that in this quantum age, we know we're all energetically connected. That's what the quantum age is all about. But back then, I just knew that there was something that connected us all. I couldn't have named it energy, but that was a miracle that happened to me after first grade in that small closet, simply by willing to share the suffering of Lev.
Right,
And
right. You related
yeah,
on so many different levels, which
well,
we all do going through life.
just like you connected with that puppy, right? It
Right.
was and what we know now in quantum physics is that there is no time and space differences, that we can connect, and that connecting, that wherever Lev was when I read his book, whether he was on this plane or not, or his, I believe he married and had a family, I believe their suffering was alleviated, as was my father's. Now, in my family, we never talked about that. We never said, oh, gee, you know, look, Harvey's nightmares have gone. And I realized at that same time that the pains in my legs had been because I wanted to run away. And I had nowhere to run except into that closet, into those stories that are so powerful, those other lifetimes, the suffering that those people had. Their hearts were as big as the world. And I love them to this day, you know.
So I know that we have all, on some level, have experienced suffering. We all have. We're humans, and everybody has experienced suffering on some level. The death of anybody in our family, the stories that you're telling. Every nationality, and every country has experienced war on some level of great defeat, but it's only benefited, as we know, the elites. And that's how they keep their power.
Right.
That's how they stay in power. So moving forward, and I thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with us on this. Believe it or not, we're already at the hour.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yeah. So this is great. You open your heart to our minds, and
That's where we connect, when we're willing to share, and when we are willing to open our hearts and share in someone else's suffering, whether it's grief or whatever their tribulation is. We cut in half their suffering, and we also magnify the love that is available to us. So it's the double-edged sword, perhaps, for suffering or painful things. And while
yeah.
the elites may think that they're gaining a bunch of money from wars and elite status, when we know how to join with other people through our hearts, and we let go of the bitterness and forgive the crap that's happened, that's wrong, we get the treasure of love.
So with as much suffering as we've had on this planet for so long, for centuries, and all the healing, we're coming, and this is very powerful for everybody to think about. We are here right now at this pivotal time in life, and we are basically holding the consciousness of so much that is out there, that the healing has to begin with each and every one of us. You are so powerful that you can heal your family lineage. You can heal your whatever it is that you need to heal. Don't sweat the small stuff. But at some point in time, there's a thing that's called ascension, which a lot of people are got multiple ideas about what the ascension is. Ascension is whatever it is to you as an individual, and
Yeah.
everyone is actually believing that their ascension will clear all of this for us, and we can all live in a perfect world that we imagine that we want to live in. I myself grew up very naive, thinking that everybody was kind and nice, and as I was raised, and very polite. Come to find out how tough this world actually is. We're all trying to get to this place of a place that we know in our heart that we came in with, this particular place. So the healing has to begin with each and every individual. And if anybody out there has something that they want to talk about, about healing and how to heal, we're going to be bringing you a lot more of this information to you on healing in general moving
It's the
forward.
practical things of how to open your heart, the heart-mind connection, because the heart is the most powerful part of who we are. And as we learn how to descend from our mind into our heart and let our heart run things, yes, that's where the healing is. That's where our power is. And magnificent things happen there. Um, I didn't expect anything when I went into that closet. I only knew that each time that I was willing to go on that journey with another person who had been through a Holocaust experience, I was healing the darkness that had enveloped my own heart because I had so identified with my father's suffering. And unbeknownst to him, I was healing some of his PTSD and some of his suffering. And his nightmares did go away. So there is healing when we can open our hearts with forgiveness and love and grace and let that be cleared. That darkness will be dispelled through the light that's within our hearts.
Yeah, what I'd like to do for our next show is start to do some of the healing work with everybody that is in this
Absolutely.
chat. In this chat, if you have I wanted to do this when I first started. I actually have studied a lot of Native American stuff and went to powwows, and I've got my own drum. There's just so much that I have studied that I think that everybody else has. We have learned by jumping in to other how do I put this, other modalities through other nationalities, because we know the white man's shit doesn't work. And the white man's shit is pharmaceutical. The white man's shit is Bill Gates. I can go on and on, but you guys all know what the white man's shit is, and we're done with it. We're gonna throw it out the window, and we're gonna start to do our own internal healing.
That highest place, in the place of the Most High, in the heart within each of us, is so much more powerful than any of that. It makes that stuff look like dirt. It is what's within us, our capacity. That's what I want us to reach to and begin to bring out, because it is possible. So yes, I very much want to do that.
So one of the things I try to put this in the chat here, but Peter Friend 77 is saying, no matter what I've been through, especially in the last 4 years with losing my mom, my dad, and stepdad, and all three of my godparents, my cancer diagnosis, I always managed to rise above the agony. And, this is the endurance that we take on when we come in. We say that, okay, let's just imagine that, you're standing there and you've got your list of things that they're going to tell you. You're going to take on cancer. You're going to lose a lot of family members. Are you going to be able to handle this? Now, you handled this in the last lifetime. Are you going to come into this lifetime and be able to handle it? You're gonna get a clown is a president in the United States, and in every other country is going to be screwed up and run sideways. Are you going to be able to handle that? Are you going to be able to handle the insanity that's going on? All these check marks, and you basically said, I'm ready. I'm ready for service to mankind, to humanity at this point in time. Now you've been chosen. You guys are the chosen ones. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
It's true. It is true. You speak the truth. And we need to own that and learn how to open to it and develop it more and more within ourselves. And I would just say that all of our loved ones who have passed, they're not that far away. They're really not. And so
it's a very thin veil. It is a very thin veil. How many of you dream of your whoever that it's on the other side? How many of you come back from a dream or woke up and just said, I just talked to so-and-so. Oh my God. And I feel so much better. Who was getting the healing? Were you getting the healing, or were they getting the healing? What I was told through the Akashic records is that the emotional connection is only on our side. They don't have that emotional connection on the other side of the veil. We carry that energetic, emotional umbilical cord to them. Now, when you really, really need them, they are there for you. They'll come in your dream state. They'll present another person. They'll give it to you in any particular way that you're open to receiving it. That it's almost as like they know what you're made of, and they will present it to you in that way. So that as long as you are open to receiving, it's just sending and receiving. Just like your your computer system, right? You send an email or a text, it gets to them instantly. And that's what they're doing. So I know it sounds kind of funny that I use the computer terms for it, but it is exactly what is happening out there. But do we want to always be connected to the ones that are on the other side of the veil? No. We have a bigger job here to do with the humans that are hurting, that need our help at this time. And no matter what, no matter which way it comes in, you're going to be able to help somebody on some level.
It's pretty much the way that it was when they were in a body. You might have related to them frequently, but they weren't there following you around 24/7, right? And so you can connect as you learn some of these things with loved ones, but they don't have to be there 24/7. It's not quite like that. I do have a funny story that might be fun to share. And
is it a quick story? Because I do want to address.
I can save it for next time.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Next time, if you guys want to join us, we're going to talk about healing, and we're going to ask you to present to us your things that you may need to heal, or somebody else, or we're going to hold the energy for you. We're going to do a healing circle with all of you, whatever it might be. But I just want to say something that Terry Lynn put something out there, and you can address this, Marcia. She says, I know that's true, having a very hard time with that today, though. So I think what she's relating to, and Terry Lynn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is when we lose somebody. If you are here, this is my, and then I'll let Marcia talk. If you've lost somebody and you're constantly, all of a sudden, within a day, they're in your mind, they're sending you messages. A sign isn't going to fall down right in front of you and say, hello, Janine, wake up over here. It's not going to happen that way. What they are doing is they're sending you subtle energy to let you know that they're there, that you have, if you be surprised who walks among you, that you have nothing to fear. They are there with you. So if you want to picture them with wings or however it is, but you've got this. And that's what we're saying. So next time, just remember, and we're going to put it up there, that it's going to be a healing circle with all of you, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. It's so powerful the more that we do it. So right now, if I get 1,000 people in the chat and across all my platforms, you know how powerful that is? Go ahead.
So if everyone will put their hands on their hearts, I'm sorry, Janine, can you say the name of the woman again that we're going to help lift today?
It goes by Terry Lynn, and it's TerryLyn.
Okay, Terry Lynn. Take a few deep breaths with us. Put your hands over your heart and let your consciousness drop from your head to your heart. And as you breathe in and you slow your breathing and you become more relaxed, I want you to repeat the words and the feeling and feel the feelings: compassion for anyone or anything, gratitude for anyone or anything, appreciation for anyone or anything, caring for anyone or anything. And let's do that one more time. Compassion for anyone or anything, caring for anyone or anything, gratitude for anyone or anything, appreciation for anyone or anything. And you will be feeling your energy shifting. You will feel yourself expanding. And if you were feeling dark and gloomy about someone's passing, that load will be just a little bit lighter, because they are here with you now, saying, not in a body anymore, but I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. So stay in your heart. And if you do this exercise 2 or 3 times a day, you'll begin to build a real connection with that highest state that we can reach as human beings. So now we're going to let our hands drop, and we're going to open our eyes, and I'm going to wish you all the best and the highest energy for the rest of the day. They liked it.
Rizzo liked it. Rizzo, come here,
Yeah.
buddy. Come here.
Rizzo.
Sorry about that. Hey, Rizzo.
Rizzo's
Rizzo, right. Sorry.
Rizzo is seeing all the beings around you, Janine. There's several beings around you. And they're positive beings. So Rizzo is seeing them, and Rizzo's saying, hey, mom, do you know? Yes, Rizzo, we know. I love it.
So since I lost my other two dogs, he was always the quiet one that never barked. He stepped up. He stepped up into his alpha position. So
there you go.
I hope that that exercise helped Terry Lynn, if you just want to put a comment. Yeah, she says, thank you so much. And she said, Rizzo knows. And and this is the type of thing. This is the type of thing that we need to be doing more of. You can go and watch any social media show out there, and they can tell you all the stuff that's going on in the world, worldwide, all the wackadoodle stuff that's going on in the circus, if you will. But when it really comes back down to it, after you turn off that whatever device that you're on and you're watching that, you're alone by yourself and you're with your thoughts, if you will. You're not really by yourself, but these are the times that all of a sudden mom, dad, brother, sister, mother, father, whatever comes in. And those are the things that in the middle of the night when you wake up, this is who you truly are. And these are the things that you were thinking about and you're wondering about, and you want to know how powerful you are. This is at that time, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, that you can get your inspiration with them. And that's how it comes to me. It's always come to me at that time. But each and every one of you have a way of healing humanity, whether you know it or not. Whether it doesn't mean that you have to do the laying of the hands. It could mean many different things. What do you think, Marcia?
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be in the early morning of the hours. My father passed when I was 28. I was a single mom. My daughter was a cheerleader, and he and I used to love to go to basketball games together. I was a single mom, so I had to go to her games by myself. And one day I was sitting at a game watching her cheer, and I just felt him show up and sit down next to me.
Yes.
And it was like, there he was. Did I see him visually? No, but it was like, hi, Dad, yes. And he came to every game thereafter with me because he knew what I was feeling like. Oh, I'd love to share this with someone, but I have no one to share it with. So popped in, there he was. And it's something that we shared and we enjoyed. And I could hear him laughing and enjoying the game. And it was a great time.
Yeah, you're right, Marcia, because a lot of us that when we do get older, and I remember my mother-in-law when I met her when she was, older, and right before she had passed at the age of 93, she would say things to me. I am the last one. I am the last one left. I have no friends. Everybody is gone. She was so lonely, and I would just sit there, and I would sit down next to her, and I would say, she was from Germany and left Germany after the war, and I would say to her, tell me the stories. And then it was so funny. She just, all of a sudden, she went from this very depressed, lonely woman to getting in the car saying, let's go shopping, Janine. And then I'd turn to her and I'd say, okay, before Mr. Steffens, did you have any other boyfriends in Germany? And she would look at me like, oh, somebody asked me. I can tell her about my first boyfriend. She goes, oh, yes. And she would tell me the stories. And then I come home and I go, hey, Paul, you think that your dad was the only one in your mom's life? He goes, of course she was. No, she wasn't.
I already did not want to hear it, right?
Well, that's before she met Mr. Steffens, right? And so, and there's just so many wonderful stories, and I kind of wish
they're treasures. Yes,
they are treasures, and I kind of wish what I know now about. And she died in like 6-7 years ago, but I didn't know about all the stuff that was going on to be awake. I wish she was still around. I can ask her all those questions, what really was going on, and when she was in Germany and she came over to the United States, all those type of things. And we need to share all those things with our family members now.
Absolutely, because they have no way of knowing otherwise. They have
Right.
no.
Yeah, and not only that, I think that the kids today have a very short attention span because of these devices.
Oh yeah.
And you know, there has to be some new rules, set so that you don't have those things. And I see more and more people that are doing that. They're putting down the devices and they're looking up, paying attention to people. I know that today, this afternoon, we went out. They have this thing every Wednesday in Heritage Park, and they've got a band out there that plays. And it's a lot of older people that are sitting out there, but nobody has got one of these things in their hands. They are enjoying the music, they're enjoying the conversations, and enjoying themselves. And that's the way that it should be moved forward with a lot of things. If you want to change anything, change how we use technology.
Absolutely. And, find, if you don't have anyone in your life that's elderly, make volunteer at a nursing home and listen to the stories of the people who are there. They will enrich you beyond measure. I guarantee it.
Yeah, definitely. So there are other, like what is it? Japanese, they honor the old, right?
Mhm.
Every culture is different, but
So
all
do
that I
Native
can
Americans. So do Native Americans. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I just, there's so much about the Native Americans, and I know that I had my blood work done, and I know that it's in my bloodline somewhere, because it's not every day that I was, just like everybody else. Every one of these people in the chat here were probably the rebel in their own family, and for whatever reason, right, we're the ones that are awake. We're the ones that rebelled against a lot of the things that had gone on, and there's a reason for that. Is that we came in, we were more awake, we were all old souls, I'll tell you that right now. And now we've got some of the younger souls that are waking up, and we have to be able to figure out how to communicate with them. And it doesn't start with a device. It doesn't start with, any of these, channels that are out there with X, Rumble, any of that stuff. It starts with the one-on-one dialogue, and opening our minds and our hearts, as you say. And so that's what we're going to continue to do.
Janine, I want to do something very special. I want to make you today an official member, invite you into my clan, the Bear Clan.
All right.
So you are now a Bear Clan member. Aho, welcome.
Aho, welcome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Wow, that is beautiful. Why did you decide to do that?
Your spirit, Bear Clan. The Bear Clan are the clan that take care of community. They are the ones. They're also medicine people, but they are the caretakers of community, the keepers of community. So I don't know you very well, but I know you. I feel like I've known you forever, and I have a lot of my relations saying, invite her in, invite her. Okay. So,
well, thank you very much.
From many levels, let me tell you, many layers.
So will there be a ceremony in the near future for that?
We can do it the next time. Yeah.
Okay.
Bring your drum, and I'll bring my pipe and my drum.
Right. Sounds really good. So everybody look forward to part 2 of this, where we do a healing. Bring your whatever it is that you want to bring to the table, and it'll be a lot of fun. I am serious. I will bring my my special drum that I've owned for a very long time, and if we want to beat a drum, we'll beat a drum. Or if you want to, whatever is out there, sage, all that. And you know what? It's really important if you explain one time. If you know this, I'm sure that you do. Saging is very sacred, and I see people out there that just sage, just like, okay, all right, but there's a whole ceremony behind saging and words that go behind that. And I've always known that you can't just, there's people out there, the white man people are out there, they'll sage a house, and they'll tell you, they'll walk around and they'll tell you how to do it. But I've also seen it done completely different with the Indian nations.
Sage is the great cleanser. So it's a very powerful herb. When you burn sage, it cleanses all of the darkness. And then you have to follow it with sweetgrass, which invites in all the sweetness. So it's really a two-part thing. And if people will write on a piece of paper something that you're struggling with, or something that you want to heal, or an issue that you have the next time, we'll do a special ceremony to help you move along in that process. And we'll bring you into the Bear Clan, Janine.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to let everyone know, Marcia.
The Indian word is Noka, N-O-K-A. Noka, bear. N-O-K-A. That's bear.
Okay. Rawr. All right. So next Wednesday, come back with you guys. And we'll talk more about this. We'll talk about paraphernalia that's used. Stuff, whatever Marcia brings to the table. She's going to educate everyone on. I love this so much. And let me just tell you, I am very honored to have you here, Marcia. And thank you so much. I'm honored that I'm now a bear. And
Bear Clan. Your Bear Clan.
Bear Clan. I'm going to write that down. Bear Clan. And
you're not a bear. You're Bear Clan.
and so so you guys we'll also see her on Saturday Night Live with Buck, Alley Cat, and Marcia. Fun. That was such an awesome show. For the first time, I think we've got quite a few followers out there. So subscribe to the Rumble, get the notification. You got to go in there and turn it on somewhere. And you never know where we're going to go with this. So also tomorrow night, I think it's at 6:00 Central, Allison, a.k.a. Alley Cat, will be back. And we're going to be talking about when the moon gets in front of the sun. And so it's about the eclipse, and that's going to be really exciting. So you guys, there's a lot more stuff that TTP is going to be bringing you. More healing, more spirituality, more knowledge for you to heal thyself.
We want to grow our community. We want to grow our community.
Okay. All right, everyone. Much love to each and everybody. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you real soon. And now we turn the page. Bye, Marcia.
Bye-bye.